Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All-In Podcast presented by Excellency Esports. I am the League Dad, and as always, joined by Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair. This is it. We made it. This is the final episode for this season for us, and, you know, perfect timing. Worlds is over, but with all of that said, even before we get to the recap of Worlds, we've already been hearing spicy stuff in NA in the LCS, and you know, it just keeps on happening. First off, most recently, just like a couple minutes ago, apparently Doublelift on stream was just kind of giving his Donezo Manifesto on TSM and what caused him to not return. And I don't want to say all the details because I'm already talking a lot, so I'm just gonna pass it off. If you haven't heard already, Alistair, could you just kind of give us a brief rundown of what he was saying for our viewers and our listeners?
Yeah, so essentially what Doublelift said happened was it wasn't necessarily his choice to retire. TSM kind of ruined it for him because Reggie was saying he was going to play on a team specifically with Palafox and Pallet, who was a support that was going to be a rookie to LCS, and Doublelift didn't want to play with that because he wanted to play with, you know, a region-winning team. And then he said he wasn't going to do that. TSM then signed Lost, and Sword Art contacted Doublelift saying he'd be playing on TSM and that Sword Art wanted to play with Doublelift. So then Doublelift went back to Reggie, said he wanted to play with Sword Art, and Reggie said he wasn't welcome back to TSM.
Yep.
Wow.
That's pretty crazy.
Dick move, Reggie. Not cool.
He basically ends the thought saying, yeah, he just hates TSM now. Though he does, he's going to stay streaming under TSM because they don't have to like each other to make money off each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the interesting part about that was, I think Kevin, you're muted as well. But the interesting part about that was Lena was there during that conversation saying, "Oh no, Peter, don't say that," or la la la, because Lena, I believe, is still GM for TSM, and obviously Reggie and Lena used to date. There's all sorts of weird drama, interconnectivity between these people, so it's a spicy one. It's Doublelift has been holding this back for over a year because if you guys all remember when he made his own video or his own announcement a year ago saying he retired, he had a totally different reason for retiring. What he said to everybody else. He said that he was done and he was never going to come back. And then here he is trying to get back. Here he is telling that he didn't retire because he wanted to. So, well, that was a bunch of bull crap, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, he did also say that he's probably not playing this year.
Yeah. But if Sword Art were to have come onto the roster with him on it, Doublelift would still be on TSM probably.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, so he said that stuff, and that makes sense to me. I would say that, like, without knowing the details, that, like, if I were in the team owner's position, it is hard. Like, as far as I can tell from the few, you know, actual details that are out there, like, yeah, at that point in time, like, the current roster looks like Pallet and Palafox, right? They didn't have any lockup on Sword Art, which is something that was commonly known in the community anyways. So there's that. And if you're, like, trying to lock in a roster, right, you can't, like, if someone just says, like, no to that, right, then okay, that's what it is. And I don't agree with the ego behind, you know, like, you're not welcome back here. I think that's a bit too much, right? Like, why do you need to burn bridges that way, Reggie? You can just still be cordial, like, hey, this is my reasoning. This is what I'm thinking, right? Because, like, it just doesn't seem like, I don't like TSM. Everyone knows that. But I don't think it seems that intelligent, like, just doesn't make sense to me otherwise, unless I think about it like, well, I mean, Double is saying no makes sense, and Reggie's saying no to the guy who, like, you know, decided to bail on the org also kind of makes sense. They both make sense to me in a way, but they're not handling it in a very mature manner.
I mean, when has Reggie ever done that?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that makes this pretty spicy because Reggie has kind of always had this history of, like, you have one side who, like, says these stories, and we used to see it when he would be in all the vlogs back then. He could kind of be a D-bag there, at times.
Yeah, he really,
But then you'd have players who also would say, but he like really puts his everything into it, and like they obviously felt like he had cared for his players, but he obviously is now more detached from actually playing and more of the leadership ownership role. But again, another story coming out with this kind of attitude from him, because the thing is like, okay, yeah, so Doublelift said no, but then you're able to secure Sword Art, and Doublelift even calling, because apparently I was reading what Lena was saying to the chat, and it looked like she had told Peter Doublelift to call Andy and kind of apologize and see if he could play, so that he could play with Sword Art and they'd have a pretty good roster. He said no. Still, Reggie said no. So Lena basically said both of them have big egos. And she's like, how awkward is this for me? Like, my ex and my current boyfriend, like, fighting. And it's, like, super awkward. I don't know.
Reggie and Doublelift both have egos? That's crazy.
Hey, superstars have egos, okay? That's just the thing. If you started an org from scratch and you're, like, relatively that successful, like, you would have an ego, too. Like, that's just part of it.
No, I completely agree. That's why I said that. Of course they have egos.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, for our viewers, sarcasm doesn't always come through. Irony doesn't always come through.
Especially if you're kind of newer to the scene. Like, you'd have to know this history of, like, because even when they were on different orgs, CLG, TSM, the rivalry, they really, seem to not like each other, and so it's like this long-lasting, long-run kind of ego feud that the two of them have had, and I'm glad that it's still going. Honestly, I'm trying to hold on to that, but whatever. It was cool to just see that right before we went on, so we thought we'd bring that in, since it's hot off the press. But another thing that's kind of floating out there. And I promise we will get to the finals from Worlds, because it was definitely talk-worthy, right? It's definitely noteworthy. But this is also crazy that the Team Liquid possible super team is this. Top lane with Bwipo. Jungle is Santorin. Mid lane is Bjergsen. ADC is Hansama. And Core JJ at support. What do you guys think of that?
LMQ, let's go!
Let's go!
I don't know. I mean, the only question mark for me is Bwipo. I mean, he's kind of known as the coin flip top laner. Other than that, I mean, I'm a little disappointed for Hansama, because don't get me wrong, if he cash out, I'm happy for him for that, but he's still a world-class AD carry, and I would have liked to see him go farther, because let's be honest, his career is probably going to end here.
Come on, man! We're gonna make it to finals next year.
Hansama's really good. Don't get me wrong, but when have we ever seen? To be fair, I guess this year's changing because we have Alfari and Sword Art and Perks all going back to their respective regions. But chances are, because Hansama he might just stay here, and if he doesn't go back to Europe, I mean, his chances of winning Worlds are borderline 0.
And he's probably not going to get better either.
No, exactly. Well, that's what I mean.
I would say with Core JJ as a support, he's actually going to get better, because like in a isolation, there is no support better than Core JJ.
I agree, but there's still a lot of other things. I mean, we saw Tactical is good, and then he started to recess as well. I mean, I agree.
More of a tactical problem, not a Core JJ.
That's fair. I don't know. I just think that like he's as good as he is. It's still just the whole. The way NA is just set up, it's really hard to like get better. It takes a very, very rare mindset to just continuously get better. Because let's be honest, if Hansama's better than every ADC on the North American server, most likely. And I mean, it's a lot hard to get a lot better when you're just better than everyone else, because you need people to be as good as you to like push you. But that's my take on it personally.
Nice. I think Hansama can always go back to EU. As long as he can keep his level to a relatively same degree. Perks dropped in level significantly, and he is still definitely wanted in EU. I would even say Alfari to an extent as well. I think it's pretty obvious that his champion pool was a massive, massive problem for that player. No matter how good his laning phase was, his mid game and late game and champion pool yet he's still looking like he's going to get picked up in EU again.
Mm-hmm.
Sword Art probably had one of the worst years he's had in a long time. He'll probably still get onto a Chinese team. So these players can definitely do it and keep it going and come back. So let's hope that that doesn't happen. We actually find success with this roster. I want to talk about Bwipo. Something that I'm excited personally about Bwipo is that this guy actually does play almost everything. He plays a lot of champions.
Mm-hmm.
He plays 2 roles now. So that's always a problem I've had with our top laners. It's been from all the way from Haunter to Licorice to Fudge to Alfari. We always have weird champion pool issues,
Mm-hmm.
and besides maybe Fudge this year and sometimes Licorice, we just kind of get screwed over in lane really hard, right? But I distinctly remember Licorice getting absolutely bodied by Bwipo in the semifinals against Fnatic in 2018, and just being like, they just can't beat Victor Top. They can't do it. So I'm excited for Bwipo personally. I think he's just going to be the best top laner when he does get here. Now that Alfari's gone, and
it's a low bar.
It's a low bar, true.
Yeah.
But
we got Impact. Impact has done better than a lot of European tops internationally.
That's one.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I think that Bwipo is, I don't know, he's just a wild, aggressive player that always wants to play and like be up and coming with the meta, right? This is a very competitive player. So I'm excited for him to come over here. I think that you put that mindset together with Bjergsen and Core JJ, you're going to have a pretty, at least good team environment, right? So I think they can definitely do something interesting.
That's fair. I would like to present to the court the Damwon Gaming Theory of Evolution, Liquid Edition. So I agree that NA is not always the most competitive. I think, however, 2 things. We did so well this year, relatively speaking. Like, our team went 3-3 in a group with EDG, and they went 1-1 with EDG, and EDG won Worlds. And if there's a team that's like far and above better than the other teams, you're just forcing the other teams to eventually get to that level. Because they don't have like solo queue opponents. They don't really have like other teams that are that good. But you're gonna get schooled by like this Liquid, assumedly, if they work out. If you get schooled by them enough, eventually your level goes up, as we saw with like these bad teams like Gen G and HLE and whatnot, right? So I'd like to think that like if Bjergsen, Hansama, Core JJ, Santorin, and Bwipo work out, it's going to elevate the level of our region. Maybe not this year, but like it will kick everyone's butt into gear. And as soon as summer split, you're going to see some improvements from the other teams, just by nature of they will scrim each other, right? Like they'll have to do that. And Worlds is in NA, so we'll get even more. Like,
is that confirmed?
No, it's not confirmed. It's just the schedule. Really? We don't know how the COVID's. Well, it's just because COVID,
it was,
right?
It was supposed to be in China this year, so it might be China next year.
It's very hard to say, right? But if it is, that's great for us. I'll leave it on. I think I have no concern about Bwipo as a top laner. I thought he was one of the best junglers for like the roster he had. They got to Worlds. That's crazy, dude. You look at that roster. Like that roster was not a monster roster by any means. There's too much rookie in that roster. And so I think he actually understands how the jungle and the top will interact even better now than he did before. And he was already pretty good at it. So I'm not worried about that. I'm a little worried about maybe the drama he might carry with him. But, honestly, that's neither here nor there. We'll see how it actually plays out on the Rift. And I think that Bjergsen is not an upgrade necessarily over Jensen, but he has the power to bring great players over because people want to play with Bjergsen. You don't hear people say like, I want to play with Jensen as much, right, overseas. So I think that's a huge acquisition brand-wise and for the future of Liquid.
I'm going to just put in a little something there where this is kind of a funny take, but Bjergsen might honestly be worse for TL's chances internationally. Just because, yes, Jensen has done better internationally. Bjergsen does better domestically. But what does it mean to do better domestically? TL wins summer, and they go first seed, and they get screwed over in groups. That could very likely happen. It happens to our first seed every year. They get placed with either 2 just crazy powerful teams, and they just cannot get second place out of groups. I mean, this TL roster could be the best thing ever. They win both splits or something. They get into a ridiculous group and they just don't get out. That could totally happen. Whereas TL, they were second seed this year and they got a fairly decent group and they almost made it out. And honestly, C9 was our 3rd seed and they made it out, right? So it's like all these things where it's like, do we even want to be 1st seed, right? Are people ever going to think about sandbagging their domestic region just to actually find international success? Probably not, but it's kind of funny to think about that.
It's pretty uncanny how real that first seed curse is.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It
happens every year.
Yeah, it happens every year. Well, I mean, this is, again, just total rumor, but it does seem to have some merit to it. Like, if anything, if it's not confirmed yet, I do feel like this is really what Team Liquid is trying to do. It just seems like that seems to be the consensus, but who knows if it'll actually happen. The one thing that, last thing on this, and then we'll move on, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this because, of course, if this happens, people, the first thing they were commenting was, great, we have 4 Europeans and a Korean, as
Hansama's Korean, but
well, yeah, but Core JJ, I mean, 4 Europeans from LEC, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like,
that makes
well,
sense.
yeah, but anyways, the whole point being is that none of them are NA, like, true born, homegrown NA talent, and so, of course, the
not.
conversation back and forth is like typical NA, import, blah, 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 and some people are like, whatever, these guys have earned their residency, and so they're NA players. I mean, who really gives a fart? I mean, I don't care either. I just thought that was an interesting observation. But did you guys have any thoughts on that, or is that a moot point?
I have thoughts on that, but
All right.
So I studied international studies and political science as my double in undergrad. So like I think about this stuff quite often, and like let's be real, like it's not easy to get residency. And you're fairly serious about being in America, at least for a few years if you're getting your green card at this point. So as far as I'm concerned, like if you're like putting that effort to like stay here permanently and like you don't get it your first year, right? You're coming here unless you get married, I guess. You're not gonna get a green card just automatically. So like that's a commitment, and like we have so many, like when we have companies and stuff like that, if someone's like working from overseas, do you just say like, oh yeah, you're not part of our company, you can't contribute because you're not American? Like what? No, yeah. we never even think about that stuff. And this is like, I'm tired of this narrative, and like obviously like we also like kind of bring it up all the time, so that it's not just the community, right? We're part of the community, but I'm kind of tired of like just being like, yeah, these guys aren't Americans, so therefore they can't contribute. They came here to play. If they came here to make money, that's totally fine. We have more opportunity for them. That's what it is, right? So for me, I think they contribute to here. That's totally fine. Other leagues need to get their crap together and like, actually have a livable wage for their, there's some very rich people coming here, but like pay them for what they're worth, right? Like we have these like conversations. You hear Carlos talking about like, oh, like this guy's only $1.5 million buyout, and they're just trying to milk their players, and it's kind of disgusting. I would rather be angry at the EU orgs, and I'd be angry at these orgs who can't keep Hansama, like Rogue, for example, because like these guys are the ones really dropping the ball for their players and not valuing them for what they're worth, or they know the value but they don't care to keep it, right? And I don't like that. So I don't think it's really an NA problem as much as it is like just pretty meh behavior from the EU orgs.
I completely agree. I mean, let's be honest here. We can have this TL roster, and we're still going to cheer for TL all the same as if it was five North Americans playing.
Sure.
Like, it really is irrelevant. And obviously it's NA. Everyone's going to meme NA for whatever. But, like, if Liquid wins Worlds, everyone's still going to say NA won Worlds.
Yeah.
They're not going to say, oh, yeah, LEC and one Korean.
Yeah.
They're going to say NA won Worlds. It is what it is.
LEC players will.
LEC players, but they don't matter.
Yeah,
they're salty. A lot of the world. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying.
All we say is 06 finals.
It's going to be. I think that it's an interesting narrative you guys are bringing, because if you bring this podcast back a year or two ago, the conversation was 100 completely about NA talent, NA rookies, giving them a chance, because we keep doing poorly at Worlds with all of our veterans, with all of our imports, and that we need to actually raise native talent. So it's interesting that really success buys everything, right? Now that there are top 3 teams, or top 5 teams bought these crazy, ridiculous rosters, and they actually did better than we have in a while at Worlds, the narrative shifts, and all of a sudden we're like, we don't care that they're imports. We don't, like, let's just have them, put them in there, let's just win, throw money at it. Like, we don't care if we have to buy our talent. where it was about a year ago, saying, what's the point of buying all this talent if we end up the same anyways? So it's an interesting, I guess, direction, because when you do think about long-term success, right, none of these imports are going to give it to us. Not really. It's got to be that native born talent that comes up and actually does something crazy. Someone who used to be like Doublelift, now we have Danny, right? But what other big name native talents do we have that are really that big this year that we can think of? It's just Danny for me. And that's kind of sad, I guess, to me, because we're basically doing a big switcheroo, right? Alfari, Perks, and Sword Art out. Hansama, Blippo, and other people back in, right? It's like we're just switching them in and out. So I hope that we do better this year and that we make it worth it. But I just wanted to bring up that point that the narrative not too long ago was NA rookies, NA talent all the way.
So I would like to clarify that, at least my viewpoint is like I completely agree with you, but we need to have both, or most likely, because like it's one thing to have like Liquid who's trying to win Worlds or like go far in Worlds, for example. They're trying to buy success, but if you're gonna have a team like CLG just try and cash out, take a bunch of imports, that's not gonna change anything. Because if we have the entire scene full of imports, then it's a problem. We need teams that are developing talent, which is what we don't have. And I think that's where that conversation was. I could be wrong. It was a year ago.
And I mean, the thing is like, with Team Liquid, I mean, there are residents there, right? Santorin, I believe, is a resident, right? Bjergsen. I mean, those are
Bjergen,
I don't think anybody here would consider, at least Bjergsen, he is NA. I mean, that's not even a question. For anybody who thinks he's not, pure NA, that's they haven't watched the scene long enough. Like, he's been here. He's our most winningest player, I think. So I mean, I think, having the team be like not necessarily native grown talent, I don't think that's an issue. Like, I honestly see more switching between EU and NA. Like, again, three people out, 3 people in from over in Europe. So I don't know, like this, we don't know if this will be a trend or not. I mean, we saw a lot of Koreans going to LPL, and so it might be more of an East and West thing, like, I don't know, like maybe it might be better to like, pool our resources together and maybe make better teams overall in the long run. I don't know. It's just interesting to see that. It's an interesting dynamic, but I do agree that I think both needs to be done. You were going to say something, Mitchell? Go ahead.
I want to say is I still believe this, and I'm going to believe this for a very, very long time until I see differently. We're not going to win Worlds by just playing the same players and recycling, Hansama, right? He's not the oldest player, but he's not new either, right? But yeah, he had a crazy time at Worlds. He did really, really well. But it's like, how NA is actually going to break through and do something? It's going to be a couple of rookies that are absolute no-names just peaking like crazy because they have unbelievable talent. That's how we're going to do it. It's not going to be some people we buy, right? Honestly, when we bought Perks, we were never going to win Worlds with him. Right? We're never going to win Worlds with the same old people. It's probably going to be some random kid like JJ who just won Worlds, right?
Yeah.
He's a rookie. So that's how we're going to do it, and that's how I believe it's going to happen. And I'm just wondering when those dominoes are going to start to fall. That's what I'm really excited as a long-term
Well,
league
hopefully,
fan. So.
All starts with infrastructure change.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, I think we all have mentioned that. I think it's just like, how do you actually get that going? But I was just going to say that, like, with the new show, that Arcane show that just came out on Netflix, maybe it'll bring in some young talent who've never played the game before, and like all of a sudden, we get some new talent. If anything, if the show is pretty good, I'm rewatching it again, but I mean, it's cool to bring in a wider audience, possibly to the game, and I'm hoping that maybe bring some
It's
talent.
gonna hit NA hard. I'm hoping it hits NA hard, man.
Yeah.
We need more players in North America.
Yeah.
It's been a problem for our region. We get enough players, we get multiple servers. Ooh, maybe our ping goes down. Oh boy. Oh boy.
The possibilities.
Step by step, okay? This is Riot Games we're talking
the
about.
possibilities are endless.
NA.
Sorry, all I'm hearing is new Lux skin.
Yes.
Which
New
I've
Lux
been playing,
skin.
by the way, because I have all the skins. They suckered me.
On
Thank you very much.
30 ping on the West Coast though, instead of 60 or 70. Because all our pros play on 60 or 70 ping. Like, what?
Yeah, it's pretty
Bro,
rough.
back home, I played on like 19.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I mean, you're a
Man,
future
screw
pro,
that.
so like that makes sense though. They need to nurture your talent.
Careful.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. That's why a lot of streamers live in Toronto because it's just, the ping is just so much better.
Oh, that
Yep.
makes
That's
sense.
amazing.
Ping is
All
a
right.
lot better. Yeah.
Well, let's go. Maybe we should talk about the finals, cause no, not to like even put it on a back burner. Like these finals were freaking hype, man. Like, I mean, we all predicted EDG. I mean, Alistair, even you technically wanted EDG to win. You just thought in your mind, or on paper, that Damwon was going to take it.
My heart said
but
EDG, my brain said Damwon.
yes, and
Yeah.
look, man,
Yeah, we don't have
EDG
brains, so here we are.
Yeah.
Here we go, man. Look, EDG did it. I am so like stoked. Let me just get your initial reactions, then we can break down the games or whatever. But for me personally, I just thought it was really cool. Like I told y'all last episode, I didn't want Faker's, SKT legacy of back-to-back, championships. I didn't want that to be broken, and thankfully EDG didn't let Damwon do that. So that I felt really happy about that. Plus, awesome games. But yeah, go ahead. What did you guys think?
First thing I want to say is I feel bad for Khan. Second thing I want to say is the 2-1 curse is still very real.
It's still very real.
And the third thing I want to say is if Scout doesn't pick Zoe as his skin, he's trolling.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
He makes that champion look insanely broken.
those are great points to make. Like, it really felt like once Damwon was up 2-1, EDG did it just like how they did against Genji. They just turned it up to another level. I do think also Damwon, although they were fairly active in the early game, it's just things did not work out for them as well as they wanted, right? It felt like Damwon was still very active in that game 4, and where they ended up losing, but Scout on the Zoe was absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
We saw an unconventional Viego pick for JJ, and the stars just kind of aligned. They did a really weird bot lane thing where they had the Jin lost its first match in I think the semis and finals or whatever, and they took away the Nami and they got the Lucian Lulu combo, which was still pretty. It looked pretty strong still, even dying early. So. Very weird series. The draft evolution was crazy, right? EDG started banning Kiana every game. LeBlanc completely fell through priority. Now that the Zillion was discovered by T1, right? So no one cared about LeBlanc anymore. I thought it was a fascinating draft overall.
Yeah.
I think okay, so they said something during the broadcast saying no analysts predicted this, and all the forums was no analysts or commentators predicted that EDG would win. Three of us did, so
yeah, we did.
For all of y'all watching, y'all are in the right place. Anyways, that aside, I think that very shortly, it was a very exciting series. My initial impressions were that JJ should probably have gotten MVP, not Scout. Scout even said so himself. That's pretty much what I wanted to leave it at for now. Before we dive into the games.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's good. And I mean, I agree with all of the stuff that you guys are saying so far. I mean, obviously the champion choices were crazy. I think game 1 we saw Predator Rakan. I mean, I just love seeing stuff like this being brought out on the final stage. But what I really liked is, at least to me, because I'm a pleb, so all the League of Legends I've been watching, to me, is just so high level and so teams were just moving together so well. I was just remember watching the mini map and watching how each team was moving so fluidly together. It was like everyone was at the top of their game at every point, and you really felt like the next mistake could be that's it, right? But I just thought that all the games were super exciting. I wanted to see JJ on the J4, and it's so funny because they gave it to him in game 1, and then I think after that they immediately banned it. I was like, dude, they were gonna test it out. They're gonna be like, all right, let's see what you could do, and then
that's what I thought was gonna happen too.
Yeah, and it's exactly what happened. So I just thought it was really neat to see that. But any particular games that you guys wanted to focus in on? I mean, they were all great. I took a couple of notes on a few of them, but was there anything in particular that stuck out to y'all?
I am just gonna start talking because I did. I feel like Game 5 was really, honestly, very tense and crazy. I'm just gonna keep harping on the draft. I really do think Canyon with the Trundle pick was such a massive throw in that game 5. It obviously is a great matchup into Xin specifically, but at this level, I don't think you care about the jungle matchup in the 1v1 at all. The Trundle was completely useless. I mean, look at their team, right? They have Kennen, Zoe, Aphelios, and Rakan. That Trundle's going to do absolutely nothing, right? Their whole team had 10 kills. He had 4 assists. That's pretty disappointing for Canyon, I think. Right, like if we look at what's banned, right? J4's banned, Lee Sin's banned, Xin Zhao was taken away, Kiana and Talon were banned in the second rotation, right? So he did feel pinched, and I guess he went for a 1v1 matchup. But I still feel like there's a ton of different jungle picks he could have gone for there. Gragas, right? Could have gone for Gragas. That was played earlier in top lane. Could have brought the Graves into the jungle and played. Yeah, Hecarim could have been interesting, right? It's actually pretty good into Aphelios and into Zoe. There was just so many better picks, and I personally, when I saw that, I was a little bummed that was how our game 5 was going to go out.
Yeah. I mean, it was still pretty close, but
it was.
You're right. I mean, just the fact that in game 5, like, do y'all remember the sneaky Baron?
Oh my god!
How insane was that? Like in game freaking 5, man. That's where I was like, this is peak League of Legends, man. Like this is just they're reading the map, they're making a bold call in this highly pressurized pivotal moment of the game. I just had to point that out because I was like, dude, this is awesome. Like it's like watching like a super intense, sports movie, and it's like unfolding right in front of our eyes. It's pretty awesome.
Well, especially with the champions they had, they didn't have a single champion that takes Baron fast.
No,
Nope.
It
was a 1 minute plus Baron.
Time. Yeah, it took a long time to get that sucker down.
Yeah. That would have been a legendary play either way. I mean, it's still legendary either way, but if they had won Worlds off that would have been one of the greatest like single shot calls, right, to get you a win. Because it was crazy. Like Beryl doing the bait beforehand, like that's really hard to pull off effectively and not look like you're inting. I mean, maybe he was just inting and then made the call off that, but I don't think so. I think it was all planned. Anyways, going into my view of the finals, I think that it was incredible. Once again, EDG just like somehow when it comes down to being down 2-1, they get stronger, which is so strange. If you've been watching League as long as we've all have been, like this is the team that chokes every year at Worlds. They lose to like Albus Nox, or did they lose to Albus Nox? They lost to that Brazilian team, INTZ, when they were supposed to be like super strong and super favored. They've lost 3-0 to H2K, which got H2K to semis when they were not that strong. So, like, this is a huge deal. I think that, honestly, I don't think Khan played that well, even though I feel bad for him. I don't think he had a very good finals. I think that somehow he overcame all of his demons, and then he hit the World Finals, and that's when they rose up again. I thought that Flandre Game 5 was actually really impressive. Like, this guy hasn't been that impressive for a lot of the tournament other than Graves. And then he plays Kennen, gets camped into the ground, and he decides, no, not today. I am going to win this game. And you guys don't matter to me. I don't care if I'm down 40 CS under tower getting camped. I also think that Kennen honestly was not very good at all. I think that when he was not on his Lee Sin, and when he was just like, especially on certain picks, he felt incredibly useless. The Talon, team effort. They destroyed him. It was not just JJ being better. ADG just was better, right? But that Trundle game, like, they picked it first. They knew that, like, they were picking it first. And they did not play it. Like, he picked Shin Zhao into it, which is technically it's usually the other way. You pick Shin Zhao, Trundle counters, right? They pick Trundle, and EDG is like, I don't care. I'm locking in Shin Zhao, and I'm better. And they were better. So, honestly, Kennen kind of looked like he was not good at all in this finals. And I think that was the gap between the rookie jungler from China versus Kennen, the de facto best, was so big.
Yeah, that is a great point. Why didn't Dunwon pick Xin Zhao? I misremembered it. I actually thought it was the other way around. Why didn't they pick Xin Zhao? That is a super weird one, especially when Xin Zhao is honestly great into something like a Kennen. You just knock him away. That's a weird one. I think someone on Donwon got paid off. That is sus, sir.
Well,
That is
I mean,
super
Trundle
sus.
counters him 1v1, so maybe he was nervous about the matchup. Like, he was kind of he got schooled the match before, so he just wanted a winning matchup. And the jungle pool got narrowed really hard.
It's like some really crappy, like 40 chess. Like, I'm going to pick Trundle, because he's going to want to pick Xin Zhao and just, like, go ahead of it, even though Xin Zhao is just a better team comp pick. Because I don't think JJ was picking Trundle, so...
Yeah.
I mean, the Ziggs was also pretty bad, so we could talk about... Donwon's drafting might just not be good. They just might be extremely good players.
We talked about this in previous podcasts where Donwon's drafting, we thought pretty much for the entire tournament was bad.
Yeah.
Besides maybe that game 5 against SKT where they baited the Aphelios. But it did feel like, honestly, Aphelios was not banned in this 5th game, right? And Donwon didn't take it. And, EDG took Aphelios, they picked the Ziggs Leona into it. They're like, all right, this is our counter. And luckily, EDG did not fall for the trap. They didn't pick Zillion for some reason. They did pick Rakan, something that can go in and follow up with the rest of his team. So, yeah. Although, to be fair, I did feel like kind of Aphelios was pretty useless that game. But yeah.
Yeah.
He won some of the later fights, but he was definitely not like present for a while.
Yeah, he wasn't
secure the win.
He got a couple kills as the game went on, but it definitely felt like it was the Ken and Zoe show. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that it's pretty cool, like, on EDG. As I was watching that series, I just felt like every person on that team had their moments, like, to help contribute, like, that were so pivotal to win that series. Like, JJ, we were kind of memeing him last time about the smites that he was missing. And he was making some clutch smites here to really, like, save his team and even secure some of the wins. So there were his moments. Flandre, I know he hasn't been the greatest, but in game 1, there was a particular 1v2 that he had versus Yas and Rakan. What happened was he was able to survive, but he forced out a lot of their cooldowns, and it was right before a Baron start, which Damwon started for some reason, even though they'd blown those cooldowns, and they actually were able to win that fight. So I thought that was really important of him. And then, of course, the Showmaker freaking showing his... who was it that showed his Zoe?
Scout.
Yeah, Scout. Man, we talked about Korean Zoes.
Yeah.
What about the LPL Zoes, man? Like,
He's Korean.
Scout's
but
Korean.
LPL, but that's true.
He did grow up in LPL.
Yeah,
he did
so
most of his,
yeah. But that's kind of funny, though, Mitchell.
Yeah.
That is kind of funny. We were talking about Korean Zoe, so I don't know. But that was so amazing.
Yeah. He popped off against Gen G, with the Zoe too. He's still Korean Zoe. It's pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
These guys
I'd
are
argue
so
that
good.
the 4 LPL trained players on EDG did much better than the one recent Korean import. Because Viper was not bad this series, but he was not like a deciding force for anything. Like everyone's talking about the gap between bot lane, right? And there was a gap, sure. Like I think there's a reason why Ghost did not pick Aphelios there. I don't think he would have been able to carry.
Yeah.
Personally. But although he did win a game earlier, so honestly, I have no idea what they're doing on that team. Yeah. My point is, I thought that EDG had way more star plays. JJ, in my mind's the MVP. Scout is close, and Mako was crazy. Mako's engages, like that like sacrifice yourself to get the engage for the Kennen who came in afterward. Like, yeah, everyone's like, oh, he I'm like, no, he set up a perfect like Kennen like follow up, and they won right afterward and got the dragon. Like, that's so selfless. And he was warding like a monster. This man was like basically risking dying at any given moment to get bot vision over and over and over. You don't see a single support on that level in the semifinals, as far as I can tell. Carrier wasn't doing on that level. Beryl wasn't, and I don't remember who the other one was. Life.
I don't know. When I see a support int for a really good engage, I just call it the barrel. So. he won Worlds doing it, so I mean.
And so did Mako. So maybe it's just that's
Mako
just what supports
after. So.
Yeah. That's true. That just might be the barrel. It might be.
I think it's the barrel play.
I remember last year Mickey tried his best to do those over and over again. Oof. Yeah.
And Hill is saying.
Yeah, and Hella saying. But it's good that at least supports they know that like. You just gotta kind of look dumb sometimes, you know. You just gotta get in there and look like a dummy every now and then. Otherwise, you're not playing the role right.
I mean, it's trust. It's complete trust in your team. Like that's what it is. Like I'm communicating that like, hey, I'm going in like follow up, and you can trust your team to do that because you know or trust that your playmaker is making the right call for the overall betterment of the team. Because you're right, he dies, but it ends up being a one fight for his team. So I mean that's awesome teamwork to see that. And that's how I really felt like throughout the games, just seeing how coordinated everybody was. I felt like there were very few mistakes. Like everybody was kind of like taking everything seriously. There were still mistakes, but like we said, even the best teams, there's no such thing as perfect League of Legends. But it was so exciting to watch. And I did want to mention Viper a little bit. I mean, he's kind of like the ADC everybody looks to because he's insanely good. I thought, honestly, I was kind of scared with the Lucian pick in Game 4. You're still on the brink of getting eliminated. Like that, right. I felt like could go really bad. And especially not with Nami. I mean, yes, the Lulu was good too, but I don't know. I was really worried about that, and I'm just glad that it worked out. It's not like he super popped off, but I thought that was interesting for him.
Well, and they forced Nami Jhin, which is not, in my mind, not amazing. Right?
I mean, the game ended at 6 kills to 3. It's not. It was not a very bloody game.
Yeah,
it was just a macro diff.
With the Graves with the 0-0-0 record and like 300, 400.
I know.
Like, a man after my own heart. He's just like, I have one objective.
I do feel like Donwan definitely in that Game 4. Like I feel like Game 4s are so pivotal at this World Championship. Is they did kind of seize up a little bit. Right? They just kept giving Dragons over and over again and saying, we'll farm it out. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. Dragons, there wasn't a single Cloud Soul in the whole 5 games. And that's a really big deal when you have EDG, who is indexing very heavily into getting Dragons. Donwan, actually the whole tournament did not really care too much about Dragons. And EDG did. And they got pretty lucky they didn't roll a Cloud Soul because a couple of those games where EDG's over-indexing into a Cloud Soul, Damwon maybe have won those. Maybe they ignore Soul. Maybe they can be in a better position. Maybe they can, make different choices to not care about the Cloud Soul and go do other stuff. So that played a big deal. I think another thing that did also play a big deal was just that with the Dragons is like you really want a strong bot lane, right? Obviously. And Danwon kept picking like Ziggs Leona. And it's like Leona, I feel like you're wasting her potential if you don't take over bot side super early, right? If you have Leona and like a strong jungle, you should get every single bot crab, right? You should have early drag prio. You should have a ton of prio into the enemy bot jungle. But they had a Ziggs and they just kept squandering their Leona, which is such a powerful pick early on. So I don't know. I wonder what's up with that, right? Should Donwan have maybe just... We know Ziggs is great into Aphelios, right? But, like, you give up so much by picking the Ziggs as well. So, early game decided every game. Early game decided every single game in the series. Snowballing early drags literally decided. So, Donwan probably just had a weird read on the meta in terms of macro, too.
I wonder now. I don't know. We obviously know Khan is not coming back, which again, very kind of sad story. But what a way to go out, though. If you guys read like his kind of what he was saying is that before they went out to the press conference, he was basically taking all the heat and just saying like, "Oh, I forced them to make bad plays, and I'm like, they're my little brothers and all that stuff." And man, that's. Yeah, I mean that's it's just really cool. Like it just shows like class and like professionalism. And he's just like, look, for me, I would feel pretty devastated. Like, man, never having international success, coming so close. But man, he was a great player. I mean, he's been a great player. Whether or not he's actually got the accolades for it doesn't matter. Like, we'll always remember Khan, and he was really good. I don't know what the contracts are like for the rest of the team, but do you guys think we see Damwon in the finals again for another year next year?
That's a hard question. I mean, I want to default to yes, but I think it's gonna depend on, if they stay together or not. Because I think if the 4 they have stay together, I think it's very possible.
Yeah,
they're still pretty darn good, man.
Yeah, they play really well together. But it's very possible, after a loss like that, they split up and go to other teams. I mean, we saw it with like Nuguri, for example.
That's true.
It's very
they also
possible
know the
that
paycheck you can get at that level.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's the big one right there.
Very
is that
easy to go to China.
These players are not playing for money by staying in Korea and on Donwon. They're not playing for money. They played to win Worlds. They won it once. They played to win Worlds again. They didn't win it this time. Some of these players are going to be thinking, is it worth it, right?
Yeah.
What if I do win Worlds next year, right? What if I had an extra couple million?
Yeah.
What if I had an extra couple
And
million,
LPL's more likely
you know?
to win Worlds at this point. 3 out of 4
Yeah.
now, right? And MSI. Like you can join an LPL team and just win Worlds. Like, was Scout a top tier? Not necessarily when he got recruited. And was Viper? Viper was. So like you see yourself if you think you're a canon especially or showmaker, you're like, I can join a good LPL roster and I make the same money or I make more money and have maybe the same chances as I do here on Donwon.
Yep.
It would be kind of sad, but it's probably inevitable now that LPL has one. If LPL didn't, they might still stick around, but
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Okay. I'm just saying, if I was one of those players, I would be cashing out big time. I'd be like, give it to me.
Especially Showmaker and probably Ghost as well.
I think Chovy needs to cash out. He's got all this credit for his laning skill. He just needs to get away from it.
I would cash out, dude.
Like, he just needs to cash out. He would make so much in NA.
Yes, he would.
Oh my gosh.
He would also he would teach us laning in mid lane because we just don't know how to.
He wouldn't even talk to his teammates. He would just ping, all right, jungler, hover my lane. Get over here.
He would take little screenshots like plus 40 CS difference. Okay, I did my job.
Hold this wave for me, jungler. That is your whole goal in life. Support you too, buddy. Hold my wave for me.
Next thing you know, the LCS throws up a graphic about Chovy's numbers and then say, hey, here's Palafox.
Real quick, I wanted to add in because I think this is super vital, or not super vital. I think this is really important as a conversation. Do you guys think this is one, the best finals we've ever had at Worlds, and two, the best Worlds we've ever had? You can have different answers here.
So for me, I would say the best Worlds we've ever had. I would say no, mainly just because the meta kind of killed it for me. But I would say finals. I would probably say yes, because isn't this the only World Finals that's gone to 5 games?
Second.
2016.
Samsung versus SKT. When SKT won it. Spoiler alert to anyone who hasn't watched that finals yet.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a bit of recency bias, but I would say this probably is the best finals. I'd have to rewatch the 2016 finals. Though last year's was also really good.
Yeah,
it's true.
It was very good too. Pentakill. In the finals. Yeah.
I think I do like this one just because there was like so many storylines going into it. I don't really remember a lot of the ones from 2016, but
yeah.
I would say definitely not the best Worlds, but best finals.
That's cool.
For me, the best Worlds is the 2016 one. I thought the meta was really interesting, and obviously we had the crazy Rocks versus SKT and the Samsung versus SKT finals. So it was kind of a bit of a Korean Civil War, but I don't care. Those games were crazy. Also, I think a big difference for me is that I remember listening to the crowd in 2016.
I was going to bring that up, dude. I agree.
Oh my goodness. When Prey hit the Ash Arrow across the world, you heard the whole world screaming at the same time. It was an unbelievable moment that will go down in history that no one's ever going to forget. And so that Worlds was like just life-defining for me, especially in this game.
I mean, can you imagine too, like as a player hearing that, like how amped,
See, I'm just confused how he hits that, because with how long Ash Arrow takes to fly, he has to shoot that before the teleport starts.
That's freaking.
It's just instinct. Ridiculous. It's just sometimes you know this, right? You're playing Jinx, you just have an instinct. You know where they are. It's like sometimes you'll shoot Jinx rockets. This is a Hail Mary. Sometimes you'll shoot Jinx rockets. It's like, I know I'm gonna kill them. You don't know where they are. You don't know why. It's an educate. You just know that it's gonna hit though. And sometimes players have those instincts. They can see where a player is moving without even actually seeing them. And so it's crazy stuff like that. I think this finals is an absolutely memorable one though. I was absolutely fascinated by the draft, just because it did feel like EDG came in as an underdog and they just drafted better than the previous world champions by a long shot. So pretty good one. Pretty good one.
I think I would say this is definitely for me the best finals. But I think that as far as Worlds, for all the reasons, like with the crowd and everything, and as far as like way better matchups, like throughout the whole thing, definitely 2016 and meta wise felt like it was more exciting and that sort of thing. Yeah, I really hope that we have a crowd. I mean,
yeah, please.
I'm gonna come if it's here.
It really
Please.
does. It really does suck because. For all the reasons we've mentioned before, like with all these younger rookie players never being able to play and get experience playing in front of a big crowd, this is pivotal, because if we do go back to having crowds, like how does that affect them again? Like does it make them feel like rookies again? Like, and is there this like lag time? I mean, because I've seen it socially, like kids missing out on school for a whole year, or kids that are really young that haven't developed really socially because they've missed out for a whole year. Like it affects things. And so I'm just wondering, like, I'm really hoping that it can go back to normal, because it is so much better when there's a crowd. And I
see adults throwing shade at each other on Twitter and Twitch, just right before this show even. So yeah, everyone's suffering from the pandemic. Here's what I'll say. I'll say that this is the best Worlds finals. I remember watching 2016 finals. I think 2016 finals weren't as good because Game 5 was kind of a stinker. Game 5 alone for me, like I thought the series was close and I wasn't sure which would be better. But the drama behind Game 5, the Barons, just all the like high level play that was going on in that high pressure situation just made the difference, because that's the most important game, right? It's the silver scrapes game, the game everyone remembers. So that made it the best World Finals. I would actually say this is the best Worlds if we had a crowd. Yeah. And because a lot of things happened this Worlds. Japan made it out for the first time. We had our first 4-way tie. Like, do you know how insane that 4-way tie group would have been in person? God. With a crowd just yelling their heads off? And then we had the 2-4 tie get out with NA getting out. Like, there was so much going on. I would argue that while T1 versus Dawn this time wasn't as good in quality as the SKT Rocks Legendary Series from 2016, I will say that the storylines in this whole world just had so many inherent storylines, because we didn't have a civil war in the finals. We had China, who collapsed everywhere, systematically had the worst collapse of a region. If you just look at their number 1 seed, right? They just absolutely flopped. And everyone was counting them out. It was like 80 something to 12 or 15 or something. And it was ridiculously one-sided, right? And they came out looking like the better team, period. Not like fluky better team. They just looked like the better team. So to me, if we had a real crowd, I think this was the best Worlds, bar none. But it's not, because we didn't.
That's what sucks, right? Because how hype would this be if there was that? Imagine how hype. I mean, I was getting hype, just watching on my phone. I mean,
we had 4 best of 5s in semifinals to finals.
Good. Yeah.
Dawn. EDG almost played a full season worth of games in playoffs. They played 15 matches. You cannot tell me this was not exciting in terms of narratives. I do agree the meta could be better. But in terms of narratives, this was ridiculous. They were counted out at every turn. They were up 2-1 in quarters and then down 1-2, down 1-2, and they came back. To me, that has got to be the best Worlds if there was the hype of a crowd. They also might not be able to clutch it out if there was the pressure of a crowd, though.
They had the worst win rate of any team that's ever won.
Yeah, that's right. I read that.
They barely cleared 60%. It was like 61.34 or something like that. I saw them like, that's hilarious.
I mean, if you think about it, Damwon only lost 5 games at Worlds.
Yeah.
Wow.
They dropped 2 games to SKT and they dropped 3 to EDG.
Yep. This is true.
That's like that, and that, kids, is why win rate doesn't necessarily matter.
That's right.
No, it doesn't. You just win.
When it matters.
It reminds me when TSM, they were like 5-3 against Golden Guardians. They get to make it to Worlds. It's like, well, that's a load of crap. But I guess it just matters when you
lose
win.
3-0 and then you win 3-2. You're like, haha, I did it though.
That is true, man. But yeah, I mean, it was great overall. Like, I'm kind of sad that it's over, and it's kind of like that recycling of like, now there's gonna be a preseason. Now we're gonna get new stuff, new dragons. The map is gonna change, and it's gonna create a whole new meta. But again, that's what makes it kind of exciting, because the same team, like, that's what's different about our sport compared to other sports. Like, the game changes constantly, and you constantly have to be innovating and thinking outside the box. And the fact that Faker, right after he lost went back to Korea and was grinding solo queue already. Like, that just warms my heart, man. To see the old guy still like, you know what? I'm freaking going to keep playing. And he's been playing a lot of Vi, probably because Arcane's out, and Vi seems to be pretty good in the mid lane. But yeah, so I mean, I think I'm excited for what's going to happen. So is there any final thoughts that you guys want to do? This is our last episode for this season. We may have an episode in between now and the new season just to talk about preseason stuff and whatever trades happen. But any final thoughts?
I just can't wait for when Riot finally smartens up and gives us double elim. Then we can have a team play like 40 games in one tournament, you know? EDG will literally play a whole regular season in just 1 month of tournaments. But we desperately need double elim. I think we got really lucky past couple years that we got Danwon versus Suning, Danwon versus EDG, and we actually got the best teams to end up in the finals. But, you know, how disappointing would it have been if, I believe EDG was second seed, right? There was a chance they could have matched up against Danwon right in quarters. So a little bit of RNG. We got lucky this year, but we need double elim 100%. Give it to us. We want it.
Yeah.
I want it. Thank you. That is all right.
Okay. Well, I support you, and I think that should happen. So.
I mean, I will say, like, and to add on to that, I would say, like, we got lucky. Yeah. That's for sure. This is just like the Worlds was great, but not because of the format, and we all know that at this point.
Yeah.
What I wanted to add in was I think that the EDG skins are going to look sick. I remember the IG skins, although they were a little samey across the board. There were some really cool ones though. Some of the greatest World skins, other than maybe Dawn ones. And then I would say that EDG skins are going to look awesome. I can't wait to see Graves get a skin. I like Graves a lot.
Yeah, I like Graves too.
And then the final thing is I'm really glad that the GOAT in our game is Faker. I was looking at like other games or other sports where like the drama was around like, okay, I shouldn't like mention football players because I don't know that much, and I just know like Tom Brady's. Some people think it's the GOAT. I think a lot of people think. The point is like there are like some pretty not great role models in like the highest positions in other sports, and we've got Faker. I am so glad that we have him and not like. I'm not going to say names because someone's going to hate me for it. So I've got Faker's the GOAT. Awesome. I'm just so happy for him that he's still playing, still motivated. This guy is like probably one of the greatest of esports, not just like League of Legends. Because like there's so few people who can be at the top of, or not top, but like at such a high level for so long. Yeah. Be so motivated too. Like I don't think he's probably like partially not human. I don't know. In a good way.
Yeah, that's kind of the meme that he's just a robot that's like designed to play League because he's just always playing and he always just genuinely seems to want to get better or try new things. I think the fact that the meta's changing and the game changes is what keeps him interested and motivated in playing. So definitely agree with you on that front, and I'm hoping he keeps on playing, and I would love to see him win maybe one more World.
One last dance, man.
One last dance, and then if I was him, I'd just retire and be the greatest ever. Nobody will ever be great. That's it.
Roll swap to jungle.
I do have one thing left to say before we end it off. Mako, if you pick Yuumi for your world skin, I will flame you. Mako, no end.
Mako, if you make Yuumi your world skin,
he said he'll pick Lulu, Yuumi, or Nami. If he picks if he picks Yuumi, I am going to be angry.
All champions that I play, yes.
I want Rakan, dude. Oh my god.
Rakan already got IG Rakan, and there's
I don't care, dude. I actually play Rakan. Rakan's fun.
Yeah, Rakan is fun, and the IG Rakan skin is sick, and it would be sick as EDG, but it'd probably...
if you pick some freaking enchanter, dude, whatever.
He's going to. He's
that's
so
gonna
good
get more money. That is
as long as it's not Yuumi, I don't care.
If it's Yuumi, we're duo queuing right away.
Oh god, I'm down for Graves and J4, so I can play him in jungle.
I'm down. Dude, J4 deserves it, man. We flamed that man to the grave, and J4 carried at Worlds.
Heck yeah!
He was banned 4 games in a row in the finals. Yeah. They were shook.
They were shook. They gave it the first game. They were like, okay, no.
He's the only person with a Yuumi player is essentially just boosting. So
this is true.
What's the point of a Yuumi skin? You're in someone the whole time, anyways, man.
No, you float on the side. You float on the side. You can see the skin.
You're this big. You're like a little bumblebee.
You pop out for like a second, you know. So
check out my skin.
Ooh, look at the skin.
AFK.
Yeah, I don't like you. I don't like the idea of a Yuumi skin either. Though. Jokes aside, and I play Yuumi.
He's probably trolling, hopefully. I wouldn't mind Nami, though, because I do play Nami quite a bit. So.
Nami would be
Nami's
interesting.
cool.
I'd
Honestly,
rather see Lulu because we
big
have SKT
EDG
Nami.
wave.
And
Yeah.
Oh, we
no
do
one
have
wants Yuumi.
SKT Nami, you're right. Yeah.
It's been
we do.
such a long time for Nami, though. Holy cow, man. I feel like
I know.
Nami is just literally only here because of that weird electrocute exploit and because of Lucian. Like, that's the only reason why she's here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she's just a fish out of water for sure because he's honestly
That's so
that
true.
good of a champion. But electrocute exploit and Lucian, so there you go.
They hand built them to be a combo down there. It's actually
Yeah.
kind of disgusting if you think
It
about
is.
it. How handcrafted it was for the world's meta because it was not
They-
played at all the year before.
Nope,
Right,
it wasn't played until Lucian got reworked, pretty much. Yep,
Yeah.
not at all, not at all.
Nice.
So yeah, good worlds, guys. Good times, good stuff.
Good
stuff.
podcast episodes, man. It's just
Yeah.
been a fun season. Thank you for everybody who's listened this whole time. I think we've done like almost 40. This might be the 40th episode of this season. So I'm real proud of
Good
us.
year.
Because we just, and I'm proud of everybody for hanging in there with us. It's really awesome to know that you guys are listening and like talking about League just as much as we do. But for one last time this season, I want to thank my co-host Kevin, Mitchell, Alistair for always sharing their wise thoughts. But until next time, guys, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.